Now, I've always believed that the best thing you can say when you approach a girl is just whatever comes to your mind, whatever you feel in the moment. The problem is that most guys, when they see a girl they find attractive, they kind of go blank. And I've been there myself, it happens. So that's exactly why I thought, why not make a video, share the top things you can say in any given situation. So next time, wherever you are, whatever the situation, you have at least one line that you can fall back on. And the reason I wanted to make this is because there is nothing worse than being in these situations where you see someone, maybe you even made eye contact with them, but then it's like an hour later and you think back and just regret not having made that approach. That's one of the worst situations ever. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at specific scenarios and I'm going to give you something to say when you're in these situations. Because the truth from my perspective is this: when we see somebody that we find attractive, we often start this process in our mind where we feel like, hey, is this the right moment to talk to her? Is it appropriate right now? Am I bothering her? Am I interrupting her? Am I bothering somebody that's with her? Am I offending somebody that's with her? Am I bothering somebody that's around, right? We're running through all of these processes, and oftentimes the answer is that, well, I'm not really sure. Maybe I am bothering her. Maybe I am interrupting her. And because we cannot really know whether that's the case, we need to find a way to start the interaction that is actually acceptable to a certain degree. And that's exactly what we're going to look at in this video. I'm going to tell you, well, how would I do it, how I have done it in the past. So whatever I'm going to tell you, I know it works. But ultimately, these lines that I'm going to share are just opening points. They are ways to start the interaction. What really matters is how you continue the interaction after that. Okay, first scenario. You're walking somewhere on the street and you see a girl that's also walking on the street. So there's no realistic way to casually, randomly strike up a conversation. Instead, you need to go there and you need to sort of interrupt her trajectory. My go-to in these situations is that I start the conversation by politely asking her if she speaks my language. Then I give her a genuine compliment. Then I introduce myself and then I transition into what I like to call get to know conversation, which I have talked about how to do. I'm going to link a different video here. So what I do then is I just try to get to know her. I give her a chance to get to know me and move things forward from there. So that's it. 3 steps. You start the interaction by asking her if she speaks your language. You give her a genuine compliment and you introduce yourself. The reason it's so amazing is because it's very honest, very direct, and at the same time, because of how polite you're being about it and how direct you're being about it, you leave it to her to decide whether she wants to talk to you, wants to keep going. So if she feels like you're interrupting or like it's not the right moment to meet somebody or she has a boyfriend, well, you give her the opportunity to keep walking. And to be honest, having the ability to spot somebody that you find attractive and to then go over, introduce yourself and be honest and direct about how you feel about them, that's something very few men can do. So that in and of itself is a very attractive characteristic. Okay, scenario 2. You're in a coffee shop or a restaurant and you see a girl sitting at a table. You want to get to know her. Now, the thing is that in a restaurant or a coffee shop, it's again very unlikely that you will casually end up sitting next to her. Now, if there's a spot next to her, you can always go sit there and strike up a casual conversation and feel out the vibe. But if that is not possible, then pretty much you have no other option than to at some point walk over and strike up a conversation. And you can just go with the same line or the same opening point that I mentioned before, but I like to sometimes go a bit more direct, especially when I've been there for quite some time. So let's say I've been having lunch myself, I saw this girl and I looked over a couple of times, maybe even made eye contact a few times. Well, if that happened, then I will go over and be very direct. I might even say something like, hey, I've been looking over for the last 15 minutes and haven't been able to take my eyes off of you. Or I might say something like, hey, I've been looking over to you and I think I have a slight crush on you. Something like this. I will just be very direct. Now, being very direct is again a great opener. It allows her to basically tell you if she doesn't feel the same way. Now, whatever you use to start the conversation, the responsibility to make something happen after that will still be on you. You can never expect to just go over, tell a girl that you find her attractive or like her, and then expect her to continue the conversation from there. Instead, the burden of the conversation, the responsibility to lead the conversation will remain with you. So you go over, you open potentially with a very strong compliment, but then you need to transition that into a conversation. So again, introduce yourself, tell her who you are, tell her what you do, ask her a couple of questions and just feel the vibe. Now, same as on the street, it's her right to just tell you that she's not interested, that she's having lunch with a friend, that she has a boyfriend. And if she tells you that, in my opinion, just accept it and leave. There's no need to make a drama out of it or try to stay in the interaction or anything like that. If it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. Now, the third scenario is any environment where socializing is a bit more acceptable. So a bar, a club, or any other venue where people are just commonly okay with you coming over and talking to them. There is something that I heard somebody say 15 years ago, and it almost sounds silly to call that an opening line, but you can just go over and say, "Hi, my name is blah blah," and put out your hand and just assume that they will be okay with meeting you because you're in a social environment. Think of it almost like a home party where it's kind of normal to introduce yourself to everybody. And just start acting that way. Just start acting as if this was your party, or at least you were one of the main guests, and it's almost expected that you briefly introduce yourself to everyone, and everyone wants to meet you. Now, don't get me wrong. These lines are by no means the best way to start every interaction, not at all, but they are something that you can fall back on when you don't have a better way to start the interaction. These are really things that are easy to memorize, that you can use again and again in different scenarios, and that give you something to fall back on. Now let me wrap up this video by sharing something with you. The guys that got really good at starting conversations with strangers are usually really good at it because they don't need something to fall back on. They can just see somebody they like and just be completely direct in what they feel, just say what's on their mind, and they're not worried about being judged. They're just okay with whatever the other person thinks. They're okay being judged. They're not worried about it. They're okay with it. And they're able to transition from whatever happens after the conversation is started into a proper conversation, and having the ability to transition from whatever the opening is to a proper conversation. That is the skill set that you ultimately want to learn. Because if you're able to do that, then you don't need any type of lines, any type of openers, or any type of whatever to memorize. You don't need to memorize anything if you can just say whatever and transition that into a proper conversation. With that said, if you want to help with any of this, there's a link to my Calendly down below. Let's hop on a call. Let's figure out where you're at, and let's help you just massively improve your dating life. And other than that, I'll see you in one of my next videos.